Also, remember this restaurant chain?
Steak and Ale welcomes you back to the old country inn. Come sup with us at Steak and Ale, we're hearty dining about. This takes me back to the old...
Kelly was just telling me she remembers
I've never seen that.
Steak and Ale brewing up a comeback. The man behind it has already resurrected another name from the past, Bennigan's. When we come back, we'll hear from Bennigan's CEO on the challenges of bringing back a brand from the past. You're watching CNBC First in Business Worldwide.
Steak and Ale welcomes you back to the old...
All right, Courtney, thank you very much. Today's market notwithstanding, many think the economy is improving enough that some faded brands from the past that died during the financial downturn can be resurrected. Remember, for example, Steak and Ale. It was once a popular chain restaurant. It's now set for a comeback after going bankrupt 5 years ago. Thank you. The man behind the plan already responsible for reviving another popular chain, namely Bennigan's, which also went bankrupt during tougher times. So why now for Steak and Ale?
Well, let's ask the man behind it all, Paul Mangiamele, President and CEO of Bennigan's, joining us now. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Bill and Kelly. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and thank you for having me.
You know, my first question when I see what you've done with the turnaround stories here is if there isn't a theory that you could almost close something and then use the nostalgia effect to bring it back in a later, perhaps more relevant iteration.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. And what I found with the Bennigan's experience is that great brands and great companies coupled with legendary restaurant experiences are tremendously resilient. And there's a pent-up demand out there within the entire United States, and for that matter, around the world, for these iconic brands. I saw that was very true with Bennigan's, and believe it or not, since we own the sister company to that, Steak and Ale, there was a tremendous outflow of demand to please bring the brand back. In fact, we started a Facebook page just to try to gauge whether it's just a couple of people or a lot, and we have almost 70,000 people that are already clamoring for the Steak and Ale. So that prompted me a couple of years ago to start with the whole process of how to reintroduce Steak and Ale in the 21st century. So we have a new prototype now. We have a new franchise model now. We have all the engineering valued so that we have with a menu and with a pro forma to reintroduce. So we have two locations that we're looking at right now, one being in the Panhandle of Florida and Panama City with an existing Bennigan's franchisee. Okay. And then we're also going to open up a corporate location here in the Dallas area.
I've said this before, I'm always fascinated by the impact or the connection that a brand name has on the emotions of consumers. I grew up a Dodger fan in Los Angeles, for example. Today's Dodgers, there's not a single player on that team that I rooted for, you know, all those many years ago, but yet I still root for that franchise because I have that connection. You're going to come out with a new look, a new menu and everything. The only thing that's the same is the name on that door, and people will somehow connect with that, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, the emotional connection piece you bring up is part and parcel of the driving force for this. And like what we did with Bennigan's, we're going to do with Steak and Ale in terms of paying respect to that heritage because it was started by an iconic man in the industry known as Norm Brinker. And that was almost 48 years ago. That Steak and Ale was created, and I cannot believe how strong that emotional connection is, and the stories that we've heard basically around the world about how their families enjoy going to Steak and Ale after church, or they met their first boyfriend, or that was their first job, and I was talking to Jim Sullivan, who's going to be a keynote at our conference next month, and who's an industry guru. And he has a cleaver that he got because he was working at Steak and Ale all those many years ago. So the nostalgia and the emotional connection runs deep, and it would be
Paul,
I would be remiss if I didn't bring back those brands to the folks that want it.
I just want to ask, this is ultimately about how you can make this restaurant succeed when it failed in the past. Operationally, is this about the franchise model? How are you stepping on expenses? What's the difference this time around, briefly, if you could?
Well, it's a 21st century version of it, so it's going to be more chef-infused with regard to the different offerings on the menu. The flavor profiles will be a little bit more spicy. Of course, the ale piece, I think, beer has become so much more in vogue today with the crafted and the IPAs, as well as the tried and the true beer. So we're going to really focus on that, but really delivering portions and quality for a great price point. And with news like we heard today from the stock market, people really need a great Monte Cristo or a great Kensington Club steak from Steak and Ale in order to weather the storm that we're presently going through. Or a stiff drink.
Yep.
Thank you, Paul.
I could go for a good Monte Cristo right now, as a matter of fact. Thanks, Paul. Good luck with that.
I'll take you there myself.
Okay, you got it. See you later.
Take care. Thank you.